Okay, now I'm going to start on part 2 of this explanation about the gold list system. I just wanted to add to what I said before, that the fact that we can quickly tire the memory means that what we needed is a system which enables us to work in 20-minute blocks. And it is important to respect resting times around these 20-minute blocks. And you will notice that certainly as regards this gold list system is concerned, it enables you to work at least at the head list level in blocks of 25 words, which is a 20-minute block. When we're coming into distillation, you are in smaller quantities. It doesn't hurt to be in smaller than 20-minute quantities. Of course, when you're adding in the fact that you are looking through, analyzing which of the words I have remembered and therefore can be taken away from the gold. Remember, I'm trying to distill down to the hardest to learn words in the gold list, the final list. And all of the distillations getting towards that list, they are pushing out the words which I have already learned. Now, remember that it was, I believe, Newton who said that for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. We always remember what we throw away, what we discard from memory, what we decide to forget is actually retained subconsciously as well in a special part of the memory. Sometimes by deliberately forgetting things, it actually pushes them a little bit more into the memory. So by discarding things, you remember, oh yes, I had that, I discarded that because I learned it in that very moment. It pushes it harder into the long-term memory. Whereas trying to remember things push things into the short-term memory, and it's no good for us as linguists. We will not be building more knowledge on older knowledge which will become assimilated into the new higher knowledge. We're building a large bank of memorized vocabulary, which, other than the fact that it becomes memorized as having a meaning, would be for us meaningless. When we listen to a language not understanding it, it is a flow of meaningless symbols. Only when we understand the meaning by remembering the meaning, it becomes understandable for us. Now, I also want to say, before going into the detail how to use a vocabulary book using the gold list system, I just want to say that when you're inputting words into the head list, you should not be worrying too much about general grammatical paradigms, but any grammar which is associated with the word itself ought to be included in the vocabulary level. When people say that 400 hours are necessary to learn a language to, for example, O level, and of this about 150 hours are done on memorizing grammatical paradigms, major grammatical shapes in the language, how sentences work. But 250 hours are used in learning the 2,000 words which you need. And when you're going on from the 2,000 to the 10,000 words, it would be all the extra time is used just in memorizing the words, because by this time you have the major grammatical paradigms. The regular grammar you learn separately by practice sentences, and even these you can include in this system. Example practice sentences showing the main grammatical paradigms, you can include those as well as simple vocabulary units or lexical units, words. You can also include phrases which illustrate them. Proverbs, things like this, or just little sentences if you want to. Or you can put them word by word in the beginning and then cram them together into sentences as you go through the distillations. You'll see in the examples that I give later on all of these different techniques of distillation. But basically what we are doing is we're using this for the main activity of language learning, which is the memorization. And it is like a game that you play with yourself. You're playing it, you're trying to find out a little bit about yourself, about your own memory. And you do it by not trying to learn, but by trying to run through drive through, if you like, a word flow, a flow of vocabulary, in the way you would drive a car down a familiar route. You are simply writing out and not using the computer but using your hand, because the hand has a particular memory. The eye to the hand has a particular memory link associated with it. This is why you're always writing your handwriting the same, and you're always writing your signature pretty much identically the same, even though you don't necessarily think about it. Oh, I must remember to write my signature the same way. There's a special memory that controls your handwriting, your signature, which doesn't exist when you're typing into a keyboard. And so therefore I don't really recognize the use of typing into keyboards as a way to optimize your memory. Certainly to activate languages which are already learned to the passive memory, you could use the computer for this. Going on to internet discussion groups, for example, will activate your knowledge of the language, but I don't see it as a good way to put it into the memory in the first place. Sorry if those of you believe computer can do everything. I like the computer as much as you do, but it can't do everything. It's not the panacea of learning, a computer. Okay, and for this you really want to get a handwritten notebook. You can take from the screen, the computer screen, or from anywhere you like, the words to input, but you need a handwritten notebook. Now, in my illustrations I used Excel to show what this will look like, but you wouldn't be doing it in Excel normally. You'll be using a handwritten notebook. I'm using it in Excel just to make it legible, and also to provide a file for you which you will be able to download from the internet on www.usenetposts.com/goldlist.xls. There you will find the spreadsheet, the Excel spreadsheet, which contains the examples which I'm showing in the images. The images show how the thing is built up, in what order, and I will discuss it by talking over the images. But to see the final effect of this, if you like, it's a mock-up of what the vocabulary book will look like, but only the first few pages over time. You will be able to download that XLS file and look at it in Excel, and I think what you can't see on this tiny screen here, you will then be able to see exactly what I mean by looking at the file. And pay attention to the way I put in fictional dates into this. In fact, I did it all this morning, but I put the fictional dates in so that you can see how this is developed over time, and you will see by the order in which I'm going to show the images in this film exactly what happens over time. And so here we go. I'm going to show you now the images and how it builds up a book, a handwritten vocab book using the gold list system. Okay, so what we're doing now is we can see that we've written 25 words here in the head list. The head list is in blue ink here. As you can see, it is Polish. It doesn't really matter what language you take. This will do for most of the languages of Europe that you need. It is assumed that you have done already the phonetics so that you know how to pronounce these words without any help. If not, you would need to add in some phonetic help amongst your writing there on the left hand side. As you see where there is need to add in extra grammar, here I have the genitives of all the masculine nouns are added in. You can add them in there and then as they go, so that you have them included. And you should really, here is only 3 pages of this text. You should take it easy. Don't try to write too quickly. Don't try to do more than 20 minutes work at a time. Just write them out at a normal rate, enjoying pleasant handwriting. Try to do it neatly, pleasantly. Don't push it too hard, and remember at the same time to read them through at the end of every time you do these 25 words. Just read them through to yourself. There's also a special memory that connects the voice to to the long-term memory. And then make sure you get your breaks after every time you do 25 words. Okay, here I put it even 3 separate dates on. You don't need to put them onto completely separate days. You can do several a day as long as you have enough breaks around them. Okay. Okay, so here we have this third page of 3 pages that I did at the head list level before we start to distill anything. And like I say, they can be taken from your course or from a dictionary. It really doesn't really matter all that much what the input source is and whether they are put together as thematic groups or not yet as thematic groups. They should be at the simple level so that you can count your vocabulary and achieve a goal of maybe 2,000 words or maybe 10,000 words if you're very ambitious at the head list. Now what we see here is the first 1 to 25 words of the head list have been distilled. The date at the top is 16th of the 2nd. The head list was first at the 2nd, so 14 days have gone by. It should be between 14 days or 2 weeks and 2 months. Not less than 14 days, so that you don't fool yourself that you've learned what you haven't really learned, and not more than 2 months, so that you don't lose your tempo. Here we see what was numbers 26 to 50 in the head list have become numbers 18 through to 35 in the first distillation. We're distilling out what we've already known, what we've already learned. And you see the green marks on the just to the right in the column on the right hand side of the head list show what I decided to do. There are marks that ticking off or Xing or showing that there is some kind of synthesis going on with those ones, and this shows how you're planning to distill down to the second. You can do that just shortly before you do the distillation. You're not needing to cover up the English part. You can do so if you wish to, but basically what you are asking yourself is, of these 25 words, which words have I remembered the best? Or which words can I now synthesize into a smaller number of words so that I can get from 25 to 17. And here you will see that they are being numbered onwards in the similar way. What was 1 to 25 in the first list is 1 to 17 in the second list, and 1 to only 12 in the third list, because again we've gotten about 25% to a third of it and just thrown it away. And we've got the little marks down the side of the green part, which was the first distillation, and they show what we plan to remove or synthesize into more information on one line in the next distillation. And again, the second distillation is taking place not less than 2 weeks and not more than 2 months after the first distillation. So we have first distillation here in green after 2 weeks from doing the beginning, the head list in blue, and here in purple we have then the second distillation, which means about a month will have gone by since I first learned these words. And again, after I'm sure that I know them, I'm pushing them out. I'm no longer repeating them, I'm only repeating the difficult words, the words which I'm trying to say are the most difficult ones to fit into my memory. And here is the same for the third page. I'm only doing 3 pages. In fact, you will probably have a lot of pages. For example, if you say I'm going to do 2,000 words, well, that is 80 pages of 25 words per page. And that is a sort of level at which you should try to pitch this. I've only shown you the first 3 pages of what your vocab book will look like, but you can imagine how from this it will go on, and you will see the full version in the XLS which I've put on the internet. Okay, here you see the natural progression of this. Another 2 weeks have gone by since you began the second distillation. Here in red is the third distillation. You can see it going around this double page of your handwritten exercise book in a kind of clockwise direction. So and this way you're getting about 40 lines down. This is 40 lines down. You can see how in 25 going down at the beginning is easily leaving space for about 8 or 9 words in this distillation. The third distillation coming down here. Again, you can see the red marks by the purple on the right hand side of the purple, planning for how we will distill this. Either an X if we don't want, if we're sure we've remembered the word since the last 2 weeks, and we're sure because we've used it a few times, we clearly remember it even more than 2 weeks later. And other synthesizing marks, 3 out of 4 of those means take those 4 lines, turn them into 3 lines, yes. And you'll see if you look at it in the Excel how exactly I did it. So remember that to actually be able to look at this, if you want to look at it in detail, you have to get it out in Excel. You will see it looking in this form already with all of the 4 parts of the work already done, like a mature vocabulary book. By following the dates you will see how we did it. Now we come to the big question of which was asked by Prague Vlog. What do I do after this point? Because Prague Vlog got okay to this point, but afterwards she having difficulty knowing what to do from here. And that's what we're about to see. Well, the answer is basically this. You will see that it means you have no more room in this book. So what I would suggest you do is get a whole new book. And here it is. I've used slightly different colors to the last book. I have my 4th distillation. This is already a mature 2nd book. The 4th distillation, which is the 5th time I'm writing them out, because the first time is the head list, not a distillation, is here in grey at the top left hand corner. You will see that again I started with 25 words, but you will notice if you see this in the XLS file, that they are 24 of these are taken from the last, or 20 or 24 or 21 of these are taken from the 3 pages before that we had of the red ones. So that those have all been added together now in a new set of 25. Well, there wasn't even 25 there, so I took these last ones are as if they had been on the 4th page, as if I had done a distillation through in red on the 4th page too, and I put in some more pretend words as if I distilled them through from the beginning. You don't add fresh words here, you use from the later pages in your mature vocabulary book number 1, level 1. So you have a level 2 book and you do exactly the same, but you take 25 at the beginning so that this book will be thinner than the other book. It will be the same idea, but it will be about 1/3 of the thickness of the first book, you see. So, and here you have it going through the whole thing. You've got your 5th distillation in green there at the top right. You've got your 6th distillation at your bottom right. And as you see, they're getting all the time smaller and smaller. By the time you get to the orange thing here, this is the 7th distillation at the bottom left hand side. From the first 75 words which I gave you in the blue on the first page of the first book, only 7 of these words are left from that collection of words. So we only have 10% of the number of words that were in the beginning. It is up to you whether you take it into a 3rd book, but probably you really know these words by now. I've written it in orange because I think you could almost say this is my gold list. Or you can take the 8th distillation as being the gold list and simply write it out in a small book without a space for further distillations, and simply, treat that as the already existing gold list. And you could say that by doing this you are pretty sure to have learned the vocabulary and Ebbinghausen's theory, I should say, if it is true, and there is no reason ever to suspect that it is not, then it means that by now you will have only a small chance of missing out on having learned the words which you have put through the system in this way. It is a pretty reliable system once you have understood it and followed it. And of course it doesn't give the speed that some of the systems do, which are short-term memory, but it will pay dividends in the end, and it will give you a measured idea of how you are proceeding the language from beginning to end without making you feel bad because you believe you haven't done enough work.